or every other thing they can think of. I don't have a place where I can go make free TV to send to my constituents to try to brainwash them to elect me the next time. And I'm paying for all that for those guys. I'm going to be running an ad pretty soon that shows they promised us they were going to hold the line on spending at Tax and Budget Summit. And I'm going to show how much they've increased this little stuff they do for themselves. And it is silly putty, folks, and the American people have had enough of it. Step one, if I get up there, we're going to clean that up. You say, how can I get Congress to do that? I'll have millions of people at my shoulder to shoulder with me, and we will see it done warp speed, because it's wrong. It's just, we've turned the country upside down.
Governor Clinton, you have 1 minute. Governor?
I would just point out on the point Mr. Perot made, I agree that we need to cut spending in Congress. I've called for a 25% reduction in congressional staffs and expenditures. But the White House staff increased its expenditures by considerably more than Congress has in the last 4 years under the Bush administration. And Congress has actually spent $1 billion less than President Bush asked them to spend. Now, when you outspend Congress, you're really swinging. That, however, is not my only passion. The real problem in this country is that most people are working hard and falling further behind. My passion is to pass a jobs program and get incomes up with an investment incentive program to grow jobs in the private sector, to waste less public money and invest more, to control health care costs and provide for affordable health care for all Americans, and to make sure we've got the best trained workforce in the world. That is my passion. We've got to get this country growing again and this economy strong again, or we can't bring down the deficit. Economic growth is the key to the future of this country.
President Bush, 1 minute.
On government reform?
Sir?
Government reform?
You could, yes, yeah. Exactly. To respond to what the subject that Mr. Perot mentioned.
How about this for government reform policy? Reduce the White House staff by a third after or at the same time that Congress does the same thing for their staff. Term limits for members of the United States Congress. Give the government back to the people. Let's do it that way. The president has term limits. Let's limit some of these guys sitting out here tonight. Term limits. And then how about a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution? 43 more than that states have it, I believe. Let's try that. And you want to do something about all this extra spending that concerns Mr. Perot and me? Okay, how about a line item veto? 43 governors have that. And give it to the president. And if the Congress isn't big enough to do it, let the president have a shot at this excess spending. A line item veto. That means you can take a line and cut out some of the pork out of a meaningful bill. Governor Clinton keeps hitting me on vetoing legislation. Well, that's the only protection the taxpayer has against some of these reckless pork programs up there. And I'd rather be able to just line it right out of there and get on about passing some good stuff, but leave out the garbage.
All right.
Line item veto. This is a good reform program for you.
All right. Next question goes to Governor Clinton. You have 2 minutes, Governor, and Susan will ask it.
Governor Clinton, you said that you will raise taxes on the rich, people with incomes of $200,000 a year or higher. A lot of people are saying that you will have to go lower than that, much lower. Will you make a pledge tonight below which an income level that you will not go below? I'm looking for numbers, sir, not just a concept.
My plan, you can read my plan. My plan says that we want to raise marginal incomes on family incomes above $200,000 from 31 to 36%. That we want to ask foreign corporations simply to pay the same percentage of taxes on their income that American corporations pay in America. That we want to use that money to provide over $100 billion in tax cuts for investment in new plant and equipment, for small business, for new technologies, and for middle-class tax relief. Now, I will tell you this. I will not raise taxes on the middle class to pay for these programs. If the money does not come in there to pay for these programs, we will cut other government spending or we will slow down the phase-in of the programs. I am not going to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for these programs. Now, furthermore, I am not going to tell you, read my lips on anything, because I cannot foresee what emergencies might develop in this country. And the president said never would he raise taxes in New Jersey. And within a day, Marlin Fitzwater, his spokesman, said, now that's not a promise. So I think even he has learned that you can't say read my lips because you can't know what emergencies might come up. But I can tell you this, I'm not going to raise taxes on middle-class Americans to pay for the programs I've recommended. read my plan. And you know how you can trust me about that? Because, in the first debate, Mr. Bush made some news. He had just said Jim Baker was going to be Secretary of State. Then in the first debate, he said, no, now he's going to be responsible for domestic economic policy. Well, I'll tell you, I'll make some news in the third debate. The person responsible for domestic economic policy in my administration will be Bill Clinton. I'm going to make those decisions, and I won't raise taxes on the middle class to pay for my program.
President Bush, you have 1 minute.
That's what worries me, that he's going to be responsible. And he's going to do, and he would do for the United States what he's done to Arkansas. He would do for the United States what he's done to Arkansas. We do not want to be the lowest of the low. We are not a nation in decline. We are a rising nation. Now, my problem is, I heard what he said. He said, I want to take it from the rich, raise $150 billion from the rich. To get $150 billion in new taxes, you got to go down to the guy that's making $36,600. And if you want to pay for the rest of his plan, all the other spending programs, you're going to sock it to the working man. So when you hear tax the rich, Mr. and Mrs. America, watch your wallet. Lock your wallet, because he's coming right after you, just like Jimmy Carter did, and just like you're going to end up with interest rates at 21%, and you're going to have inflation going through the roof. Yes, we're having tough times, but we do not need to go back to the failed policies of the past when you had a Democratic president and a spendthrift Democratic Congress.
Yeah,
Mr. Perot.
Yeah, wait a minute. You permitted Mr. Bush to break the rules, he said, to defend the honor of the country. What about the honor of my state? We rank first in the country in job growth. We got the lowest spending, state and local, in the country, and the second lowest tax burden. And the difference between Arkansas and the United States is that we're going in the right direction, and this country's going in the wrong direction, and I have to defend the honor of my state.
We've got a wash, according to my calculations. We have a wash, and we go to Mr. Perot for 1 minute. In other words, the violation of the rule. That's what I meant, Mr. Perot.
So I'm the only one that's untarnished at this point.
All right, you're clear. You're clear.
Go ahead, boss. Go ahead.
I'm sure I'll do it before it's over. Key thing here, see, we all come up with images. Images don't fix anything. I think, I'm starting to understand it. You stay around this long enough, you think about it, if you talk about it in Washington, you think you did it. If you've been on television about it, you think you did it. What we need is people to stop talking and start doing. Now, our real problem here is they both have plans that will not work. The Wall Street Journal said your numbers don't add up. And you take it out on charts, you look at all the studies the different groups have done, you go out 4, 5, 6 years, we're still drifting along with a huge deficit. So let's come back to harsh reality. And everybody says, gee, Perot, you're tough. I'm saying, well, this is not as tough as World War II, and it's not as tough as the Revolution. And it's fair shared sacrifice to do the right thing for our country and for our children. And it will be fun if we all work together to do it.
All right. This is the last question, and it goes to President Bush for a 2-minute answer, and it will be asked by Helen.
Mr. President, why have you dropped so dramatically in the leadership polls from the high 80s to the 40s? And you have said that you will do anything you have to do to get reelected. What can you do in 2 weeks to win reelection?
Well, I think the answer to why the drop, has been the economy in the doldrums. Why I'll win is I think I have the best plan of the three of us up here to do something about it. Mine does not grow the government. It does not have government invest. It says we need to do better in terms of stimulating private business. We got a big philosophical difference here tonight between one who thinks the government can do all these things through tax and spend and one who thinks it ought to go the other way. And so I believe the answer is I'm going to win it because I'm getting into focus my agenda for America's renewal. And also I think that Governor Clinton's had pretty much of a free ride on looking specifically at the Arkansas record. He keeps criticizing us. Criticizing me. I'm the incumbent. Fine. But he's an incumbent. And we've got to look at all the facts. They're almost at the bottom on every single category. We can't do that to the American people. And then, Helen, I really believe where people are going to ask this question about trust. Because I do think there's a pattern by Governor Clinton of saying one thing to please one group and then trying to please another group. And I think that pattern is a dangerous thing to suggest would work for the Oval Office. It doesn't work that way when you're president. Truman is right. The buck stops there. And you have to make decisions even when it's against your own interest. And I've done that. It's against my political interest to say, go ahead and go along with the tax increase, but I did what I thought was right at the time. So I think people are going to be looking for trust and experience. And then I mentioned it the other night, I think if there's a crisis, people are going to say, well, George Bush has taken us through some tough crises, and we trust him to do that. And so I'll make the appeal on a wide array of issues. I got a philosophical difference. I got to watch the clock here. I don't think we're a declining nation. The whole world has had economic problems. We're doing better than a lot of the countries in the world. And we're going to lead the way out of this economic recession across this world and economic slowdown here at home.
Mr. Perot, you have...
I think I'll win.
Mr. Perot, you have... Sorry, excuse me, sir. Mr. Perot, you have 1 minute.
I'm the last one, right?
No, Governor Clinton has a minute after you. Then we have the closing statement.
1 minute after you.
Right.
I'm totally focused on the fact that we may have bank failures and nobody answered it. I'm totally focused on the fact that we are still evading the issue of the Glaspie papers. I'm totally focused on the fact that we still could have enterprise zones according to both parties, but we don't. So I'm still focused on gridlock, I guess. And I'm also focused on the fact that isn't it a paradox that we have the highest productivity in our workforce in the industrialized world and at the same time have the largest trade deficit and at the same time rank behind 9 other nations in what we pay our most productive people in the world, and we're losing whole industries overseas. Now, can't somebody agree with me that the government is breaking businesses' legs with these trade agreements? They're breaking businesses' legs in a number of different ways. We have an adversarial relationship that's destroying jobs and sending them overseas while we have the finest workers in the world. Keep in mind, the factory worker has nothing to do with anything except putting it together on the factory floor. It's our obligation to make sure that we give him the finest products in the world to put together and we don't break his legs in the process.
Governor Clinton, 1 minute.
I really can't believe Mr. Bush is still trying to make trust an issue after read my lips and 15 million new jobs and embracing what he called voodoo economics and embracing an export enhancement program for farmers he threatened to veto and going all around the country giving out money in programs that he once opposed. But the main thing is he still didn't get it from what he said the other night to that fine woman on our program. That the 209 people in Richmond, they don't want us talking about each other. They want us to talk about the problems of this country. I don't think he'll be reelected because trickle-down economics is a failure, and he's already offering more of it. And what he's saying about my program is just not true. Look at the Republicans that have endorsed me. High-tech executives in Northern California. Look at the 24 generals and admirals retired have endorsed me, including the deputy commander of Desert Storm. Look at Sarah Brady, Jim Brady's wife, President Reagan's press secretary, who endorsed me because he knuckled under to the NRA and wouldn't fight for the Brady bill. We've got a broad-based coalition that goes beyond party because I am going to change this country and make it better with the help of the American people.
All right, now that was the final question and an answer, and we now go to the closing statements. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes. The order was determined by a drawing. Governor Clinton, you are first. Governor?
First, I'd like to thank the commission and my opponents for participating in these debates and making them possible. I think the real winners of the debates were the American people. I was especially moved in Richmond a few days ago when 209 of our fellow citizens got to ask us questions. They went a long way toward reclaiming this election for the American people and taking their country back. I want to say, since this is the last time I'll be on a platform with my opponents, that even though I disagree with Mr. Perot on how fast we can reduce the deficit and how much we can increase taxes on the middle class, I really respect what he's done in this campaign to bring the issue of deficit reduction to our attention. I'd like to say to Mr. Bush, even though I've got profound differences with him, I do honor his service to our country. I appreciate his effort, and I wish him well. I just believe it's time to change. I offer a new approach. It's not trickle-down economics. It's been tried for 12 years, and it's failed. More people are working harder for less, 100,000 people a month losing their health insurance.